three things are very important when you speak about finance. Number one is cost. Number two is scale. Number three is how long it takes to get it. At the moment, and I'm speaking as a policymaker, and I'm speaking as somebody who has interacted in this space, it takes eternity, if I may say. It takes eternity to get to any financial close on many aspects when you're looking for financing, number one. Number two, sometimes you don't get the scale of the money you're looking for. And number three, there is something called risk, which is a new definition of how not to lend money. Because this risk, and you know, and we pay an arm and a leg for risk. Although data speaks a different language, data shows that investments in our region are not as risky as they are being profiled. So in fact, this profiling of our region as a risky destination is a conspiracy by people. And I saw some of them about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. They were trying to profile us, the credit rating agencies. I think they are the new tools of colonialism, if I may say. Because data speak a different language from the risk we are being profiled. And as a result, we are all now in this space, and it's almost a consensus that the people, the rest of us in this region, we pay anywhere between 4 and 8 times more for resources, for development, for investment, put in place infrastructure than others, than our brothers and sisters in the global north. And we have no problem with our brothers and sisters in the global north accessing finances lower than us. The question we are asking ourselves is that why are we not getting the same treatment? Why are we being profiled negatively when facts and data show something different? So this is the conversation we want to have. And it is a foregone conclusion today that the system we have is not working. There is need for reform of the international financial system to do 3 things. Reform to speak to time. How long does it take? It takes minimum 18, 24 months. You know, some of the interventions don't have that kind of gestation period. It doesn't have that time, number one. Number two, scale. I'm speaking, for example, and I'm asking myself, if we were to ask for $3 billion to build the standard gauge railway, which China was gracious to give to us, and it took a fairly short time, below 12 months, we wouldn't have built the SGR if we were looking for finances in the current financial system. We wouldn't get that scale. And number 3, we wouldn't get the kind of interest that we are looking for. So our position is that there is something the current international financial institutions can learn from China, for example, scale and speed. Maybe there is something China can also learn from our current international institution. But we are saying there needs to be a conversation. We need a conversation that makes all of us winners. And what we are saying is, in the reform of these institutions, we're not being reckless. What we are saying is, let us have a fairer international financial system that doesn't price the rest of us into debt, into default, into a situation where it becomes impossible. I mean, let me just ask us seated here. If one person is paying 8 times more than the other, isn't that person paying 8 times set up to fail from the beginning? In fact, it would be a miracle if you don't default. In fact, I think some people are asking themselves, why have these people not defaulted? And it is the same reason, for example, why those Moody's people, the credit rating agencies, were really pushing that, Kenya is in very serious situation. Until we told them, if you continue profiling us negatively, we will pay off this debt and see what you're going to do. Because they were making it look like we are unable to pay. We're telling them, we want to pay. In fact, we want to pay before it's due. And they wanted to tell us, if you pay before it's due, it amounts to a default. What kind of nonsense is that? I mean, if you pay your debt early, how does it become a default? It's madness, isn't it? But, we're not conforming to what their expectations. So they're wondering, you are paying 8% more. Why are you not defaulting? Why do you want to pay early? This is the unfortunate conversation we want to have. We want a fairer system that doesn't mistreat other people. We want a fairer system that we pay whatever others are paying. And good people asking for a fairer system, saying that we want to pay the same interest others are paying, is not asking for too much. It is not breaking the system. It is not unreasonable. I mean, by all accounts, it cannot be unreasonable. We're all saying, let's pay what others are paying. And let's get the scale that can help us achieve what we want. And let us accelerate so that we can all move at the same pace. So that is the push. It is the position of many leaders in the global south. This is not a conversation of North versus South. No, it is a conversation of fairness. And we're not saying the global North should pay more than us. No, we are saying let's pay the same. Tell me how that is not a good thing. We have the advantage of location, being a country in the East Coast with a port in Mombasa. So we are, to a good extent, a logistical hub, both for our region and continentally. Number 2, we are also a financial hub. We have some of the best financial institutions, banks and international financial institutions headquartered here for our region. And it is the reason why we already have a very thriving trade and business environment between us and our partners, both in EAC, in COMESA as well, where we are members. EAC is among the most progressive interaction economic blocks in Africa. I think our intra-Africa trade, our intra-EAC trade is now, I think, 19-20%. While the intra-Africa trade, in Africa is down to 13-14. So we're already in that space. Our biggest trading partners today in our, as Kenya, is our regional partners, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC. That's where our biggest market is. And therefore, we are already speaking to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area ecosystem. Intra-Africa trade is already where our biggest market is. And therefore, what UNCTAD is doing, providing us information, giving us leverage on where our trade should go is significant. And that is why I really wanted to be part of this conversation. And as we do that, we also realize that our continent contributes only 3% to international trade. So it means as we build our continent's network and integration to trade amongst ourselves, we also must have at the back of our minds, how do we meaningfully also contribute to international trade? How does intra-African trade also speak the language of international trade? And that is why it's also important for us to build the linkages we are building with EU, for example. We have a signed agreement now with EU. It should have been an agreement for EAC. We went ahead as Kenya because we were ready, but we are confident that our East African community friends will come along. We hope it will be extended to the tripartite free trade area and eventually to the continental framework. It is the reason why today we are negotiating with the US on a strategic partnership agreement. It is the reason why we are negotiating with other blocs, because ultimately Africa must contribute its fair share. 3% is not where we should be. At the very minimum, we should be in the realm of our percentage of population, maybe 17, maybe 20% of global trade. And we're also focusing on the real opportunity that we have in the future. This continent is going to be home to a quarter of the world's population by 2050. This is the continent that has renewable energy resources. This is the continent that has 2/3 of the world's arable uncultivated land. This is the youngest continent. So we have real assets that has the potential to make Africa central to what happens globally going into the future. And that is why integration is front and center, left and right, in us going forward. Africa is home to the largest reserves of green energy. Africa is also home to the minerals, actually almost 45% of all the minerals required for green transition. And therefore, with that kind of situation, green growth will be most viable in this continent. And development around industrialization, around manufacturing, will now make a lot of sense where you have the largest reservoirs of green energy, and that is in this continent. And therefore, going into the future, green growth, green industrialization, green manufacturing, the genuine natural home will be in Africa. And that is why we are pitching that if the reality is, and I think we all now agree, and that is why we are having the Africa Climate Summit, where we want to consolidate our thoughts, our ideas, and what we think the solution to where we are, the challenge that we are of development versus climate change, what we think as a continent should be the way forward on the 4th and 6th of next month. And I welcome all of you to come to the summit so that you can bring these very good ideas and we can consolidate them together. If we continue the fossil fuel trajectory, we will burn this home, this earth, and it will burn for everybody. It will not burn for the global south and leave the global north, or burn for the global north and leave the global south. We are on these together, so we better act together. And that is why we've taken the position that we do not want the old narrative of finger pointing. We want to solve this problem together. The global south and the global north together. How are we going to do it together? We have renewable assets. We have green energy. We have green minerals. We can provide green industrialization. What we don't have in abundance is financing and technology. We can have a win-win outcome if we bring Global South green energy resources, Global South green energy, Global South green minerals, and we bring Global North technology and Global North financing. We will come out with a win-win solution instead of the endless quarrel between the North and the South. That is the proposal we intend to bring. And we do not want to come to the table with a blame game situation. We want to come to the table with solutions. And we will be proposing how Africa can leverage on its assets. Number one, of green energy. Number two, of green minerals. Number three, of our human capital, the youngest continent in the world. Number three, of smart agriculture and unlocking the potential of the 2/3 uncultivated arable land in our continent. How do we bring these assets to the table? To do two things: to provide green growth, to provide jobs, and to decarbonize the rest of the globe. We can make a very significant contribution as a continent using the assets that we have in solving the global problem of climate change that is coming as a result of the exploitation of fossil fuels. We are willing to listen to others. We are willing to bring our ideas on the table. What we have refused is that we shall not be a continent anymore of victims. We will not come to any table just as victims of climate change. We are coming to the table with ideas and possibilities of solutions on what we can contribute, because Africa can make a contribution to the global solution, the global challenge, and provide solutions to the global problem that we have. And we want to be seen in that new approach to the issues around the global challenges we have. We need to look at alternative sources of funding. We appreciate that there are limitations, as was said by my sister Grynspan here. There are limitations of the current financial institution. There are limitations with the World Bank. There are limitations with the IMF. There are limitations with multilateral banks. And we are not accusing them of anything. There are limitations, genuine. Maybe they are 20%, as has been said, of what they were. Maybe the magnitude of the financial challenge that we have as a globe goes beyond these institutions. How do we develop other capacities? How do we raise more resources? And that is why the conversation about carbon tax is no longer a sterile. It's no longer a sterile proposition. It is a real proposition. How do we raise resources that can be used in a different paradigm without the current limitations, where we invest these resources in the biggest return on matters to do with green growth? How do we decarbonize the globe together? If the best opportunities are in Africa, let us invest in Africa. If the best opportunities are elsewhere to decarbonize our development, let us invest in that elsewhere. We are ready to have that conversation. And I said that we do not want to be left out of the equation. We want countries in 1945. We didn't exist in 1945. Today we exist. And we don't want to be pushed into the corner. We want to be seated here and making a contribution. If it is carbon tax, if it is on aviation, we want to pay our portion. If it is on marine movement, we want to pay our portion. We want to pay our portion. We don't want to be joyriders. We don't want to be bystanders. We don't want to be in some corner, because the old adage says, if you are not on the table, you could possibly be in the menu. I think we may possibly have been in the menu for long. Now, we don't want to be there anymore. We want to be where the conversation is having on the next global financial system. And we want to make our contribution in terms of ideas, and we want to make our contribution if there is any contribution to be made in terms of paying our portion of taxes that are required.